The world of high society and royal protocol often seems like an impenetrable fortress governed by centuries of strict tradition, unyielding etiquette, and an almost sacred devotion to decorum. From the outside, every public appearance, every handshake, and every official engagement appears meticulously choreographed to perfection, leaving absolutely no room for error, spontaneity, or unexpected human frailty. We watch these grand events unfold on our screens, marveling at the seamless precision with which members of the world's most prominent aristocratic families navigate the intense scrutiny of the global spotlight. Yet, behind the heavy velvet curtains of palace walls and underneath the formal veneer of official charity galas, there exists a parallel universe where the unexpected occasionally disrupts the grand design. These rare, unscripted moments, often hidden from the public eye for years, serve as a fascinating reminder that even the most revered figures in modern history are vulnerable to the chaotic whims of everyday life. It is within these fleeting, private intersections of fame, power, and ordinary human nature that the most captivating stories are born, waiting to be uncovered decades later by an audience eager to see the real faces behind the pristine public personas. To ensure you never miss these deep dives into the hidden chapters of history and the secret lives of the world's most influential figures, take a brief moment right now to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you can journey along with us through every gripping revelation when we look back at the golden era of the British cultural landscape during the late 20th century. Few periods capture the imagination quite like the early 1990s. It was a time of profound transition where the established order of the old world was frequently colliding with the exploding, vibrant energy of global entertainment, music, and media. London sat at the absolute epicenter of this cultural shift, serving as a glamorous crossroads where legendary rock musicians, Hollywood icons, and ancient royalty frequently shared the same physical spaces. These encounters were not merely superficial photo opportunities designed for the morning tabloids, but rather deep, structural relationships forged through massive philanthropic endeavors and high-stakes social circles. For an outsider looking in, the sheer concentration of influence in these exclusive rooms must have been dizzying, as individuals who shaped the global music charts stood shoulder to shoulder with the literal heirs to the British throne. Yet, for those who grew up directly inside this whirlwind of immense privilege and creative genius, such extraordinary surroundings were simply the background noise of an ordinary childhood. It is almost impossible for the average person to comprehend a reality where international rock royalty and actual reigning monarchs are just standard fixtures of your family's immediate social circle. But for one particular young girl born into the heart of this elite world, it was the only reality she had ever known, long before she would capture the hearts of millions of viewers across the globe as a modern fashion icon and the star of one of the most successful streaming television series of the 21st century. This young girl was navigating a highly unique upbringing split between the rolling hills of the English countryside and the blinding lights of Los Angeles. Born into a household defined by immense musical legacy and artistic obsession, her early years were shaped by the immense shadow of her father's historic career, which dominated the global music industry for generations. Her mother, a prominent American socialite and dedicated antique collector, provided a grounded yet highly sophisticated counterweight to the chaotic energy of international rock tours. Growing up in the United Kingdom during her formative toddler years, the young girl was inadvertently placed on a direct collision course with the pinnacle of British society, completely unaware of the historical weight carried by the people her parents casually invited into their lives. The innocence of early childhood naturally acts as a universal equalizer, blinding a toddler to the concept of royal titles, majestic lineages, or the terrifying concept of imperial protocol. To a 2-year-old child, a king is not a monarch to be feared or revered, but simply another adult sitting on the floor, and a beloved global princess is merely someone offering a warm smile and a patient hand. This brings us to a highly specific, deceptively innocent photograph taken more than 3 decades ago at a prestigious, high-profile charitable event in London. In the image, which has resurfaced in recent years to the absolute delight of historians and pop culture enthusiasts alike. We see a breathtakingly beautiful young royal icon, leaning down with characteristic grace to accept a beautiful bouquet of fresh flowers from a pristine, angelic little girl dressed in an immaculate, formal outfit. On the surface, the photograph captures the absolute epitome of royal perfection, a picture-perfect moment of seamless public relations that embodies everything the public loved about the monarchy's connection to the world of arts and entertainment. The lighting is soft, the smiles are radiant, and the entire scene looks as though it was lifted directly from the pages of a fairy tale. The public saw this single, frozen frame and assumed it was just another successful, highly disciplined encounter executed according to the strict guidelines of royal handlers. However, photographs are notorious for their ability to deceive, capturing a single millisecond of peace while entirely masking the hilarious, terrifying, and utterly chaotic reality that unfolded just a fraction of a second before and after the camera shutter clicked. It was only recently, during a high-profile appearance on a major late-night television talk show alongside a celebrated contemporary actor, that the now-grown woman finally decided to shatter the pristine illusion of that iconic 30-year-old photograph. With a mischievous smile and a brilliant sense of comedic timing, she revealed to a stunned studio audience and millions of viewers worldwide that her younger self had actually committed a series of jaw-dropping, unprecedented breaches of royal etiquette during that fateful encounter. What the world thought was a moment of polite reverence was in reality a scene of absolute, unmitigated toddler rebellion that left seasoned palace officials gasping for air. As she began to peel back the layers of this long-forgotten family story, she exposed a sequence of events so hilariously inappropriate that it serves as the ultimate testament to the unpredictable nature of children, regardless of how many royal guards are standing at the door. The sheer audacity of her actions as a 2-year-old child not only shocked the immediate witnesses in the room at the time, but also completely upended the traditional dynamics of how one is expected to interact with the future King of England and his universally adored wife. As we prepare to dive into the shocking specifics of what actually happened when the camera stopped rolling, one cannot help but marvel at how tightly held this secret was for so many years. The tension in the room during that historic meeting must have been palpable, creating an atmosphere where the highest echelons of British royalty found themselves completely at the mercy of an unpredictable toddler's whims. It raises a fascinating question about the invisible boundaries of polite society and what happens when an innocent child completely ignores them in front of the entire world. In the next segment of our report, we will fully uncover the precise details of these chaotic royal interactions, exploring the exact moment all the air was sucked out of the room during a tense standoff over a bouquet of flowers, and the unbelievable physical object that was shockingly launched directly at the head of the future king, changing the nature of that star-studded afternoon forever. To fully understand the gravity of the hilarious chaos that unfolded behind the scenes of that pristine historical photograph, one must first examine the unique structural bridge that brought the worlds of legendary rock music and absolute British royalty together in the first place. The connection was forged entirely through a massive, highly influential philanthropic powerhouse known across the globe as the Prince's Trust. Founded in the mid-1970s by Prince Charles himself, this ambitious organization was designed with the deeply noble goal of providing essential support, training, and financial assistance to vulnerable young people struggling to find their footing in a rapidly changing British economy. By the dawn of the 1990s, the charity had grown into a massive cultural force, and to sustain its extensive reach, it actively recruited the most prominent, commercially successful artistic figures of the era. Among these cultural titans stood the legendary musician Phil Collins, whose unparalleled success with the band Genesis and as a solo artist made him a crucial asset to the organization's high-profile fundraising efforts. Because of his tireless dedication to the trust, he was frequently invited into the immediate personal orbit of Prince Charles and Princess Diana, developing a professional and social rapport that allowed his family unique, unfettered access to the royal couple during major events. It was during one of these prestigious, star-studded charitable gatherings in the early 90s that a young Lily Collins, barely 2 years old at the time, found herself brought along by her parents to experience the heights of London society. Dressed in an exquisitely cute, immaculate formal dress that her mother Jill Tavelman had carefully selected for the monumental occasion, the toddler looked like an absolute picture of childhood innocence, the very embodiment of a perfect, polite guest. As the event progressed, the moment arrived for the traditional presentation of a beautiful bouquet of fresh flowers to Princess Diana, a highly coveted symbolic duty that was meant to be executed with the utmost grace, deference, and adherence to centuries-old protocol. With the cameras positioned, the lighting adjusted, and a room full of distinguished guests, diplomats and media personnel watching in breathless anticipation, the tiny Lily was guided forward to hand the magnificent arrangement over to the universally adored Princess of Wales, who was world-renowned for her gentle, warm approachability when interacting with young children. What happened next, however, has become a legendary piece of hidden family lore that completely shattered the carefully managed decorum of the afternoon. As Princess Diana graciously smiled and leaned down to accept the beautiful arrangement from the pristine toddler, Lily extended her tiny arms, presenting the flowers just as she had been instructed to do. But the absolute second Diana's fingers closed around the stems to take possession of the bouquet, a sudden, fierce wave of toddler possessiveness overcame the young girl. Rather than letting go and stepping back with a polite, rehearsed curtsy, Lily dug her heels in, tightened her grip, and aggressively attempted to yank the entire bouquet right back out of the hands of the stunned Princess of Wales. It turned into a literal, silent tug-of-war over a bunch of flowers between a stubborn 2-year-old and the most famous woman on the planet, occurring right in front of a room full of high-ranking dignitaries and palace officials. The immediate reaction inside the room was nothing short of absolute, paralyzing shock, creating a moment of pure, unadulterated tension that seemed to stretch on for an eternity. As Lily Collins herself later described the incident, the absolute second she pulled back on those flowers, all the physical air was instantly sucked right out of the room, leaving her parents and the assembled guests utterly frozen in collective horror. In the rigid world of royal etiquette, deliberately wresting an object away from a senior member of the royal family is an almost unthinkable, monumental social transgression that would normally cause severe public embarrassment. Yet, because the perpetrator of this unprecedented security breach was an incredibly adorable 2-year-old child wearing a beautiful, pristine little dress, the terrifying tension instantly melted away into a wave of suppressed amusement. Princess Diana, who was celebrated globally for her profound sense of humor and her innate ability to humanize the often stiff monarchy, handled the sudden, chaotic tug-of-war with immense charm, preventing what could have been a deeply awkward public relations crisis and turning it into a cherished, albeit stressful, memory for the Collins family. Remarkably, this intense standoff over a bouquet of flowers was not an isolated incident of childhood rebellion during Lily's early encounters with the British royal family. On another equally memorable and prestigious occasion tied to her father's extensive charitable work with the Prince's Trust, the young toddler found herself placed in a relaxed, private play area where she was meant to pass the time quietly under the supervision of adults. As fate would have it, Prince Charles himself decided to take a brief break from his heavy administrative and hosting duties to check on the children, stepping into the casual room to interact with the young daughter of his highly valued musical ambassador. Displaying his characteristic, traditional interest in child development, the future King of England actually sat down on the floor to engage in a moment of playful interaction with the young Lily, using a selection of standard children's toys that had been laid out across the room to keep her entertained. To the average person, the mere thought of sitting on the floor alongside the direct heir to the British throne would be a deeply intimidating, awe-inspiring experience requiring the absolute highest level of personal restraint and formal respect. To a mischievous 2-year-old like Lily, however, Prince Charles was not a historic royal figurehead to be revered, but simply another participant in a game, an inviting target standing directly in her line of sight. Holding a chunky, solid plastic toy telephone in her tiny hands, Lily suddenly decided that the casual playtime session needed a dramatic injection of energy. Without a single moment of hesitation, warning, or regard for the physical safety of the future monarch, the young girl wound up her arm and forcefully launched the heavy toy telephone directly across the room. Aiming it straight at the head of Prince Charles, the sheer audacity of a toddler throwing a plastic projectile directly at the face of the future King of England is a scenario that sounds entirely fictional, yet it unfolded in real time before the eyes of terrified onlookers. A plastic toy flying through the air toward a senior royal is the ultimate nightmare scenario for palace security teams, who spend their entire careers trained to intercept potential physical threats to the monarchy. Fortunately, the toy telephone did not cause any lasting physical harm, but the absolute shock of the gesture reverberated through the immediate social circle, highlighting the magnificent, completely uncontrollable unpredictability of small children when confronted with the immense gravity of royal status. Lily would later jokingly reflect on her early childhood tendencies, acknowledging with a witty smile that, as a 2-year-old, she simply possessed an innate, highly developed knack for doing incredibly naughty things. Completely oblivious to the historical weight of the individuals she was casually terrorizing with her playtime antics, these incredible, long-hidden anecdotes offer a brilliant, refreshing contrast to the highly curated, meticulously manufactured images we typically receive from the British royal family, proving that even the most formal historical settings are completely vulnerable to the delightful, chaotic realities of ordinary human childhood. The image of a young Lily Collins engaged in a silent tug-of-war with Princess Diana, combined with the vision of her launching a toy telephone directly at Prince Charles, paints a wonderfully vivid picture of an elite upbringing that was simultaneously extraordinary and completely grounded in universal toddler behavior. In the final part of our exclusive report, we will delve much deeper into the long-term impact of these fascinating interactions, explore the rich, complex biographies of the legendary individuals involved in this star-studded social circle, and examine how these early, unscripted royal encounters ultimately foreshadowed Lily's own meteoric rise to global fame as a Hollywood icon. When we reflect on these extraordinary, long-hidden encounters between a mischievous 2-year-old Lily Collins and the highest echelons of the British royal family, we are forced to look far beyond the immediate comedy of the situations to understand why these moments truly matter in the broader tapestry of modern cultural history. These are not merely amusing, isolated family anecdotes to be shared lightly on late-night television talk shows. Rather, they represent a fascinating, deeply symbolic intersection of two incredibly powerful global dynasties. On one side, you have the ancient, deeply traditional House of Windsor, a royal lineage governed by centuries of strict protocol, unyielding social expectations, and a pristine public image that must be preserved at all costs. On the other side, you have the burgeoning, untamed dynasty of global rock and entertainment royalty, represented by Phil Collins, a man whose musical genius and immense commercial success granted his family unprecedented, intimate access to the most exclusive social circles on Earth. When these two entirely different worlds collided in the early 1990s, it created a unique temporary vacuum where the heavy, suffocating rules of imperial decorum were completely shattered by the pure, unscripted innocence of a toddler who could not care less about titles, crowns, or the divine right of kings. To truly appreciate the incredible context of these historic interactions, one must closely examine the remarkable biographies of the legendary individuals who found themselves at the mercy of Lily's childhood antics. Her father, Phil Collins, stands as one of the most successful, universally recognized musicians in the entire history of modern music, a prolific singer, songwriter, and drummer whose work both with the progressive rock band Genesis and as a solo artist defined the sonic landscape of the late 20th century. His legendary career yielded an astronomical string of global hits, countless prestigious awards, and an enduring legacy that cemented his status as a true titan of international show business. It was precisely this unparalleled level of global influence and respect that allowed him to become such a crucial, highly valued ambassador for Prince Charles's personal charitable endeavor, the Prince's Trust. Phil's tireless dedication to the Foundation's noble mission did not just involve writing checks. He actively participated in star-studded benefit concerts, organized high-profile fundraising galas, and dedicated his immense personal time to bridging the gap between the stuffy world of the British aristocracy and the vibrant, trend-setting world of popular culture. It was through this essential, high-stakes philanthropic bridge that a young Lily Collins was brought into the immediate personal orbit of Princess Diana and Prince Charles during a period of intense, highly transformative cultural significance for the monarchy. Princess Diana, the universally adored Princess of Wales, was navigating a complex, deeply scrutinized public life during the early 1990s, a time when her profound empathy, unmatched fashion influence, and groundbreaking humanitarian work were fundamentally rewriting the rulebook of how a modern royal interacts with the public. Diana possessed a legendary innate affinity for children, routinely breaking away from her formal security details to connect directly with young people on their own level, offering a warmth and emotional authenticity that was entirely unprecedented within the rigid history of the royal family. This unique, empathetic nature explains exactly why she was able to handle a tense, sudden tug-of-war over a bouquet of flowers with such immense grace and suppressed amusement, recognizing that the stubborn 2-year-old child in front of her was acting out of pure, innocent human instinct rather than a deliberate desire to disrespect the crown. Similarly, the image of Prince Charles sitting on the floor of a casual play area, only to be suddenly and forcefully struck by a heavy plastic toy telephone launched by a toddler, offers a wonderfully humanizing glimpse into the private life of the future King of England. Throughout his decades of public service as the Prince of Wales, Charles was frequently perceived by the global media as a highly formal, traditional, and occasionally stiff figure, deeply committed to the preservation of ancient customs and heavy institutional duties. Yet, behind closed doors, his extensive work with vulnerable youth through the Prince's Trust demonstrated a profound, enduring commitment to the next generation, a dedication that extended to patiently enduring the unpredictable, chaotic whims of the young children of his closest celebrity allies. The sheer absurdity of the direct heir to the British throne being casually targeted by a plastic projectile highlights the magnificent universal equalizer that is early childhood. A chaotic force that treats a future reigning monarch with the exact same playful irreverence as an ordinary playmate. As the years rolled on, this unique, star-studded upbringing split between the rolling hills of the majestic English countryside and the blinding, high-pressure lights of Los Angeles would ultimately serve as the perfect foundational training ground for Lily Collins's own spectacular rise to international fame. Growing up in an environment where legendary rock musicians and actual reigning British royalty were standard, everyday fixtures of her family's immediate social circle, Lily developed a rare, deeply ingrained immunity to the intoxicating, often paralyzing nature of extreme celebrity. She learned at a remarkably tender age that the most famous, revered, and influential figures on the planet are, at their absolute core, just ordinary human beings who laugh, make mistakes, and navigate the same basic human emotions as everyone else. This profound, grounded perspective allowed her to enter the highly competitive, ruthless world of Hollywood with a unique sense of confidence, poise, and professional grace, entirely unfazed by the heavy pressures of the global spotlight today. Millions of dedicated viewers around the world recognize Lily Collins not merely as the daughter of a legendary rock icon or a childhood acquaintance of British royalty, but as a brilliant, fiercely independent force in the entertainment industry in her own right. Her masterful, charismatic performance as the stylish, ambitious marketing executive in the hit streaming television series Emily in Paris has transformed her into a definitive modern fashion icon, a celebrated global household name, and one of the most sought-after actresses of her generation. Her extensive, highly diverse filmography spans across critically acclaimed dramas, whimsical fantasy epics, and high-stakes psychological thrillers, proving time and time again that her immense talent far outshines the legendary family legacy into which she was born. Yet, despite her staggering international success, massive red carpet appearances, and millions of devoted followers across social media, she remains beautifully connected to the delightfully chaotic roots of her unique childhood, possessing a wonderful willingness to share these hilarious, unscripted historical moments with the public. Ultimately, the incredible story of a young Lily Collins engaging in a silent tug-of-war with Princess Diana and launching a toy telephone straight at Prince Charles serves as a beautiful, refreshing reminder of the unpredictable human element that lies just beneath the surface of our carefully curated cultural history. It proves that no matter how many centuries of tradition are enforced, no matter how many strict protocol advisors are stationed in the room, and no matter how grand or historic an occasion might be, the pure, untamed, and wonderfully rebellious nature of a child will always find a way to break through the pristine veneer. These long-forgotten, hilarious interactions do not diminish the immense gravity or historical significance of the British monarchy. Instead, they enrich it, adding a delightfully warm, humanizing chapter to a lineage that is so often defined by rigid coldness and distant formality.